Welcome to Peter and Roughie's Football Show, the only daily football programme on STV Edinburgh and STV Glasgow. The main headlines tonight: Celtic are all set for that £14 million game against Malmo at Celtic Park tomorrow night, and there could be a new face on the way following in the door from Scott Allen yesterday. Over and above that, Rangers could be set to add a gunner to their lineup, and who better to have as a special guest in the studio than a player playing for a team that you've tipped to be in the playoffs. It's as simple as that. We can stand up, we can face them, Roughie. Ziggy, Gordon, delighted to have you here. Roughie, did you tip the Ackies for the drop?
No, I didn't, but I had them in the playoffs. As did a lot of people. I mean, the season they had last year was unbelievable. The first half of the season was magnificent. Yeah,
but that's not any. That won't dig you out of the hole that we've got with Ziggy. Ziggy, do you have a list of names of the people who've tipped you to go down in the dressing room?
No, but you two are at the top of them from when I made the list. No, I mean, we had a great season last season, and there's no reason why we can't, do exactly the same this season. We feel we're even stronger than we are last season, and I know we showed against Dundee United, how critical it is to scoring goals, and a lot of people say where we're going to score goals now. The Tony Andrews left, and then Mika Antancure, but put forward past a very good team in the league. So just more people to prove wrong, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Listen, you can't take, we didn't even see that coming, Roughie, on Saturday. I mean, it was a
same way as at Partick Thistle. Everybody expected us to be the team that would be flirting with relegation, but when that kind of thing happens in the dressing room, there's a bond appears where everybody's all fighting for each other, and you've got you get certain characters in the dressing room who remind you, what it's all about, and you have that more determined attitude every time you go out.
Yeah, I like the attitude of let's be more determined. But if you haven't got the players, Ziggy, you can't do it. And you've got a strong belief. Just picking up on that point, you feel as if you're stronger this season. Is there a case for Martin Canning now having a good pre-season and a chance to get his ideas across? Will that help the cause?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we already knew that his philosophy, his ideas were really spawned from, where Alec Neil left off. They're the same kind of person, same mould. They're both winners. They're both captain of the club and then become managers. So we knew exactly what we had to do. But when you take a player like Tony Andrew out of this team, and everything really goes through him. When we were with Alec Neil, so a lot needs to change. But now we've got a full pre-season under our belts. Everyone's got to know each other. The new boys who have came in look really good. So yeah, we're really excited.
And Nadi, to his credit, looks lean.
Oh, he is. Oh, he's just an absolute machine. I think there was a few rumours that he might be overweight or whatever. I'm not saying he could run a marathon, but he's certainly brilliant at holding the ball up, and he does everything that we need him to do, really.
Yeah, there's to be honest with you, there's only probably one out of the three of us could run a marathon on this programme. You two really need to work at it, to be perfectly honest with you. As far as you mentioned the other players that have gone, but now it's about the players that are there. What clicked? Is it just simply down to the fact that when I look at the Ross County game, you didn't get the goals. When we look at the Partick Thistle, you didn't get the goals. Is it just clicking with Dundee United? Is that the key to it all now for Hamilton Accies, just scoring the goals?
I think it's to do with a wee bit of luck as well. When we played Partick Thistle, Thomas Cherney played outstanding. We had about 3-4 one-on-ones, hit the bar, hit the post, did everything you expect to do when you're on top of the game. But we just didn't score against Ross County. We blitzed them for the first 20 minutes, and Ali Crawford missed a penalty. They got up and scored 2 goals. It just shows you how crucial the first goal is. We managed to get it against Dundee United, and then after that, it was just, I felt like it was a bit more relaxed. Everyone was a bit more relaxed. Now we've got the first goal, we can now get the ball down, play, and just play a normal game, and it showed.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I noticed that. And it doesn't matter what team you're in. If you get 2 early goals, you do settle down because the pressure's off you a wee bit, and then you start to see players playing, and that's what it looked like at the weekend.
Yeah, just of the other teams. I mean, that's the key to it all. Okay, the last season was magnificent at the start, and some people couldn't believe when you defeated Celtic at Celtic Park. You're top of the league, you get all the adulation that follows. But this season, is it a case of, is the remit to try and stay in the league, or do you think you've got a top 6 side, or is it too early to brag?
I think it's maybe too early. I think I've already mentioned before. I think we're better than a lot of teams that are in the league, and we thoroughly think we are. 1 to 11, I wouldn't take many players. Maybe bar Aberdeen or Celtic into our squad. No way.
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you, that's a bold statement, Roughie, from Ziggy.
Yeah, it certainly is. But I mean, in the form that they were in last year, you've already spoke about the Celtic game, but there were other games against the bigger sides that you were holding your own as well. And if you believe you can do that again, it's a good thing to have in your locker. Yeah,
we were talking about this yesterday. I might as well get your thoughts on it, Ziggy. We like to see, I know the papers picked up on it today, we like to see players showing a little bit of skill, a little bit of gallousness on the park. Nathan Adua has been slightly shocked. Even Mark Warburton admits that he had to have a word with him and say, listen, don't suppress your talent, go out there and show it. What's the attitude of footballers to it? From your own personal point of view, you're a defender.
No, I think it's great that he's showing off what his talents. It's brilliant, especially in Scotland where we maybe don't see it as much as we probably should. But I mean, personally, if he did it against me, he wouldn't be doing it again.
There you are, Roughie. There's an insight into a footballer.
Yeah, I think every footballer, not just Ziggy, but I think if somebody's going to take the mickey the first time, you're going to make sure he's not going to be doing it the next time. So that's something the boy will have to live with. But you're right, we all want to see skill, we all want to see something, a wee individual bit of magic, and as long as we know when we play Ziggy, he's only going to do it once.
Exactly. Again, you find yourself, Ziggy, up against, you've got a League Cup match to come, but you've got Hearts, which will be a real test because they have started the season superbly well. I mean, I went through to see them, thoroughly deserved win over Motherwell, but have you been surprised by the 4 consecutive wins?
Not really. I think it's huge credit to the hard work that they've done, especially going on from last season. There might have been a few questions over can they take that form into the Premier League, and they have. But I mean, it's such fine lines. I mean, you look at St Johnstone. I think they came back to win the game like maybe twice, or that it was 2 each and then 3-2, and then it's the same with Ross County. I mean, it's fine margins in football, and especially when they come and play us in 2 weeks, hopefully we'll be bang at it and ready for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, Roughie, I always like to include a few tweets and texts and things like that with people interacting with us. You can do that at Peter and Roughie on Twitter and facebook.com/Peter and Roughie. George, who's a Hibs fan, sent me a message last night on Facebook, Roughie, not happy that there seems to be quite a focus on Rangers in that championship. He's a Hibby who thinks that Alan Stubbs' side will win the championship title. He's bet us 50 quid that they'll do it.
Yeah, well, I think Rangers have deserved all the credit they're getting. There's no doubt about it. Most of the games they've played in, they've won comfortably. I don't think Hibs have really started yet. I was reading Alan Stubbs was saying they're nearly there. When you bring in 2 or 3 players so late on, it'll take them time to settle. But for me, Hibs need to get a regular goal scorer to be challenging Rangers.
Yeah, Ziggy?
No, I would agree with Roughie. I think, they're obviously a very strong team. They've got good players all around the pitch, and I think, it will be them and Rangers going for the title. I don't think there's any question about it, in my point of view. But we'll just have to see. It's a long season and it's early days. Yeah,
you mentioned you were going to come up against Hearts and how you think you'll fare against them. Are Inverness one of the sides that you're going to play them on Saturday up at the Tulloch Stadium? Are they one of the sides that you think are in a clutch of teams that you have to prove you're better than?
I don't think we need to prove that we're better than anyone because we'll do that ourselves. We don't need anyone to tell us that. I think Inverness last year were really, really good. I was very impressed with them. From the first game we played them, they beat us 2-0 convincingly. I think they beat us all 3 times, but I think they've lost a few crucial players, and as I said, I think we're stronger, so there's no one to fear. No one to fear at all in the league.
Yeah, I think we might have to be taking Ziggy out at the end of the season, Roughie. If this all goes according to plan, we could be in line for taking a few of the Hamilton boys out to say sorry, we got it wrong.
No, it's good to see a bit of confidence.
Well, I thought you were going to say no, our dinner's safe.
No, I think it's good to show the confidence. There's no doubt that they've got a lot to prove this year after the season they had last year. But no, Hamilton could be the team that you don't want to play.
Yep, absolutely. OK, thanks to Roughie and Ziggy in the first part of the programme. In the second part, join us because we're going to talk Champions League. Of course, Celtic in a crucial match against Malmo tomorrow night at Celtic Park. I think that one could be full to the gunnels for the Celtic fans demanding the group stages. We'll get the thoughts of these two guys on Ronnie Dyler's comments next. Welcome back to Peter and Roughie's football show. Ziggy Gordon, the Hamilton Accies fullback, is our guest in the boot room tonight. Delighted to have him with us here in the studio. Alan Rough alongside me, Peter Martin. As far as the discussion, all our eyes are on the Champions League playoff draw. And of course, the playoff match tomorrow night is Celtic against Malmo. The proof will be in the pudding as to how strong Malmo are. There's a certain amount of regard between the Celtic manager and Aga Haraida, the Malmo coach. There's that Scandinavian mix to it, but I think the general feeling is, and Ronnie Dyler has mentioned today at the press conference, Roughie, they have to get a good lead, keep a clean sheet if they're to have any hope of making sure that they don't suffer any mishaps in the second leg.
Yep, I think the clean sheet is very important. There's no doubt about it. Malmo lost 2 goals to Red Bull away from home the last time. Okay, they come back and won 3. They scored 3 at their own ground, but I think it's very important that Celtic come up with goals, and it's going to be a difficult one because when you get to European football, sometimes the goals don't come as easy. So they need people really to step up to the plate, and obviously you're looking at Lee Griffiths, who's on good goal scoring form just now. But I would like to think that a 2-goal lead would be sufficient. I think Celtic have progressed away from home. I think they're playing better football away from home, organised. We saw what they did in the last round. So I think that's the progression that the manager's looking for, but I do think they need a couple of goals. Yeah,
Chris Commons is fit and available. Is this a game where he has a part to play, Roughie, when you consider, sometimes it takes, like, for example, a Shakhtar Karagandhi moment when Commons can produce a bit of magic?
Yeah, he can produce a bit of magic, there's no doubt about that, and the Celtic manager's got a lot of decisions to make. One for me is the boy Boyata at the back. I thought he was very sloppy. He'll be worrying, I'm sure he will be worrying about that position. Don't want to frighten the Celtic supporters, but Effie Ambrose might be thinking about bringing him back in again. He's not got a lot of European experience, and if he was to make a couple of mistakes like he did at the weekend, it could be very, very crucial. It might be Matthews. He might play Matthews in there if he's thinking of changing it. But I think he knows himself, the midfield. It's the midfield. Beaton has come into a class of his own in European football, so I don't see him tinkering very much with that. But for me, and I've said to you at the beginning of the season, it's goals that matter in European football, and I just hope that they've got somebody in there can come up with a Commons 30-yarder or whatever, because if you look at European football, it's something special that wins these games.
Yeah, Ziggy, there was a worry when Celtic took a slender lead to Karabag. I thought they played a really composed European style of football, and in the end were able to yet again keep a clean sheet and just do enough to get through. And I think that's, you have to change your style. You have to play, in effect, that way away from home as well. And I think they're starting, Ronnie Dyler's side look as if they're completely aware of what they need to do. But as you've mentioned with Hamilton Accies, goals could be the key here.
No, I think, especially away from home, they seem more professional. They seem to know their jobs, exactly what they need to do, and they go out and do it, as simple as that. I watched the game in the last round, and they just looked a lot more composed than they usually do away from home. I think at Celtic Park, they go play, freely. They don't feel much pressure at Celtic Park because they are so strong, especially in the league. But no, I'm looking forward to the game on Wednesday. And obviously, as a player plays in the Premier League, who's seen Celtic play week in, week out, I think they'll do the job.
Yeah. Are you confident, Roughie?
I'm confident at home, there's no doubt about that. I think most teams will come to Parkhead and allow you to play, and I certainly think Celtic have got enough players, Johansson, Beaton, if it's Mackay-Steven or Armstrong, I think they've got forward-going players that can hurt them. We just don't really know how good Malmo are. If you look at the players in their team, there's no big stars. Some of them have been to Celtic already and not not done particularly well. So if you're looking at it that way, you know, you would think that they should qualify.
I love the way you just left that in the air there, Roughie, just to suggest that Joe Ingeberget is going to come back and score the winning goal. Listen, all I would say to you, these things happen. I mean, I'll say one name to you, Roughie, Harold Bratback. Again, ended up playing for Rosenborg and scored some crucial goals against Celtic. You know, it's every incentive you need as a player, Ziggy, when you come up against your old team.
No, I know. They'll obviously certainly want to prove a point, especially when I don't think he had the career he certainly wanted at Celtic. But these things happen. I think, you know, when you play against, you know, your former team, you just have that extra maybe 5-10% that you wouldn't have, you know, in a particular league game. Yeah.
Okay, it could be interesting times at Celtic Park, and I think some of the players who maybe haven't experienced it before, there are a few, Roughie. I just wonder about the bonus of Celtic Park and a full Celtic Park. Some players have mentioned, Xavi, you've got Messi, you've got all players across European football talking about that unique atmosphere, but there are some players, you know, that have played at the highest level in stadiums all across Europe who are wondering what it's all about. Do you think there's an unnerving situation when you come out onto that park?
Yeah, I think there is. Yeah, I think it's a tremendous stadium, and standing there, I can see why some players would go maybe into their shell a wee bit. I'm not saying the Yavis and all that. I mean, they've been about, but Malmo have been to the group stages, the Champions League last year. They'll have experienced, I think it was Milan, it was in their section, they'll have experienced playing these teams. I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to knock them off their stride. I think it's the pace that Celtic play at and the tempo they play at, and if you get a couple of wee breaks here and there, it could always help.
Yeah, we will look at that with great interest. That's Celtic against Malmo. Of course, Manchester United, Roughie, against Bruges. Equally tough for Van Gaal. I mean, Ronnie Dyler, I think, is punching above his weight to get Celtic into the group stages. If Manchester United were to slip up, you know, suddenly you'd start to look at the Manchester United manager and think about the money he spent.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that, but I don't think that's going to happen, Peter. I said at the weekend, I think this Man United side are just about to fire on all cylinders. They've certainly got quality players in there, and I just think they need to click, and I think that game will be when it happens. I think they'll win this one quite comfortably.
Do you agree with them, Ziggy?
I think it's a different kind of pressure for Celtic and for Man United. Man United are obviously expected to go in, you know, without any worry at all. Celtic, on the other hand, have the whole, you know, expectation. You know, they're from Scotland, they're the only team that could possibly get into the Champions League. So, you know, it's going to be difficult for both sides. I personally think, you know, obviously, I hope Celtic go through, and you know, I think Man United will go through, but I don't think it's going to be as simple as many people think.
Yeah. What did you make of last night, Roughie? It threw up a question. Liverpool's 1-0 win over Bournemouth. It threw up a question that undoubtedly will, you know, rear its ugly head again and again and again. The offside rule. Liverpool get the 1-0 win. Defenders like Ziggy, who come out in a line and follow the shout of the centre half. You know, Coutinho is clearly in an offside position. The assistant hasn't noticed it. Yeah,
it's a difficult one again. I think that's the only rule they've changed this year. I think everybody still trying to get their head around it. It makes it even worse when players don't understand it. What chance have you got? You know, the referees certainly know what they're doing, but I think it's a rule for me. And I looked at the Liverpool manager last night. If you're offside, you're offside. You know, and that's the way I feel. If that's the rule, then that's what you play to. Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's no doubt in my mind, Ziggy. Coutinho was in there affecting the goalkeeper, maybe his positioning. Benteke sneaks in and scores. That's going to happen in the Premiership at some point in Scotland. I certainly hope not, my team. I'd be thoroughly disappointed if the linesman didn't, you know, flag for offside there, because I watched the game and Bournemouth did everything that they were supposed to do. Every defender seemed to know exactly what they needed to do. You know, when the ball goes out, you want to try and follow the ball and get out of your penalty box as soon as possible. But they got it wrong, and it's really unfair on Bournemouth, especially going to Liverpool and playing so well. Yeah. Just a couple of points there, Roughie, on some of the transfers. Rangers look set to get another loan player, this time from Arsenal. They're hoping to bring in, his name is Gideon Zelalem. So clearly,
Mark Warburton is trying to utilise the budget that he has and try and get players that maybe won't be seeing first team football down south?
Yeah, well, I think it's becoming more apparent now that they're not going to spend any large amounts of money. They think they're good enough with the squad that they've got to get themselves out of the division, and the supporters will be hoping that they're keeping the war chest for when they get into the Premier. And if that's the way it pans out, it'll be a great move for them, bringing in these players who will have good experience from the clubs that they're coming from.
Okay, that's just about it from us. Ziggy, is it going to be a vegetarian meal, or is it something fit that we have to buy, or is it just a big steak and a big real nosh up at the end of the season?
Just anywhere that's extremely expensive.
You see, Roughie, everybody's got the same idea. They think you're loaded.
Yeah, that's not the case. It won't be a big place anyway.
Exactly. You can see Ziggy and most of the Hamilton players outside a chip shop in May if they indeed avoid relegation. That's just an opinion. Thanks to Ziggy for joining us here in the studio. Join us if you can tomorrow night. We'll look a little closer at the teams ahead of Celtic against Malmo, and we'll talk more football right across all the divisions. From Roughie and myself, thanks for watching.